Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the story of one Roman emperor whose death didn't just mark the end of a reign, but triggered a seismic shift that reshaped the entire ancient world. We're talking about a man whose final moments sent shockwaves through the empire, leading to civil war, chaos, and ultimately, a new beginning. This is the story of Nero. Now, when you hear the name Nero, what comes to mind? Probably a tyrant, a madman, fiddling while Rome burned, right? While that famous image is likely a myth, the reality of his reign is just as dramatic. Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus ascended to the throne in 54 AD, a promising young emperor guided by his ambitious mother, Agrippina the Younger, and wise advisors like Seneca and Burrus. The first few years were actually seen as a golden age. The empire was stable, the arts flourished, and Nero was popular with the common people. He lowered taxes, funded public works, and put on spectacular games. He saw himself as an artist, a performer, a poet, and a musician. But this very passion for the arts, which he genuinely possessed, was also seen as undignified and scandalous by the traditional Roman elite. An emperor performing on stage? Unthinkable. This growing disconnect between Nero and the Senate was a ticking time bomb. But the real turning point, the event that sealed his fate, was the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD. The fire raged for over a week, destroying vast swaths of the city. Rumors immediately began to fly. Did Nero start the fire himself to clear land for his lavish new palace, the Domus Aurea, or the Golden House? Did he really stand on a tower and sing about the fall of Troy as his city burned? Historians like Tacitus and Suetonius, who wrote decades later, certainly painted him as the villain. While it's more likely the fire was an accident, Nero needed a scapegoat to deflect the public's fury, and he found one in a small, misunderstood religious sect: the Christians. This marked the first major state-sponsored persecution of Christians, a brutal and horrific chapter that would echo for centuries. He had them torn apart by dogs, crucified, and burned alive as human torches to light up his gardens. It was an act of monstrous cruelty that forever stained his legacy. Meanwhile, Nero's paranoia and extravagance was spiraling out of control. He had his own mother, Agrippina, murdered. He forced his respected advisor, Seneca, to take his own life. He squandered the state's treasury on his artistic pursuits and the construction of his magnificent golden house. The senatorial class, who already despised him for his populist policies and un-Roman behavior, saw him as a dangerous and unstable despot. Conspiracies began to brew. The most famous one, the Pisonian conspiracy of 65 AD, involved senators, equestrians, and even his own guards. It failed, and Nero unleashed a brutal wave of executions, eliminating anyone he even suspected of disloyalty. But this just fueled the flames of rebellion. The final act began in 68 AD. The governor of Gaul, Vindex, openly rebelled against Nero, denouncing him as a tyrant. He was soon joined by Galba, the governor of Spain. Vindex's rebellion was crushed. The momentum was unstoppable. The Senate, sensing their moment, finally acted. They declared Nero a public enemy. His own Praetorian Guard, the elite soldiers sworn to protect him, abandoned him. He was alone, hunted, and terrified. Fleeing Rome, he hid in a villa just outside the city. Realizing all was lost, and with his enemies closing in, he decided to end his own life. But even then, he hesitated. According to the historian Suetonius, his final words were, "Qualis artifex perio." What an artist dies in me. With the help of his secretary, he plunged a dagger into his throat, and the last emperor of the Julio-Claudian dynasty was dead. So, why was his death so world-changing? Because Nero died without an heir. For the first time in nearly a century, there was no clear successor. The Julio-Claudian line, which had begun with the great Augustus, was extinguished. Nero's death created a massive power vacuum, and the Roman world plunged into chaos. What followed is known as the Year of the Four Emperors. In the single year of 69 AD, Rome saw 4 different Mangalba, Otho, and finally, Vespasian claimed the imperial throne, each backed by their own legions. The empire was torn apart by a brutal civil war. Armies that were supposed to be defending the frontiers were now marching on Rome, fighting each other for control. It was a terrifying glimpse into what could happen when the central authority collapsed. It showed that the real power in the empire no longer lay with the Senate in Rome, but with the generals and their loyal legions scattered across the provinces. A man could become emperor not by birthright, but by the strength of his army. This chaotic year finally ended when Vespasian, a pragmatic and experienced general, emerged victorious. His victory was more than just a personal triumph. It established a new dynasty, the Flavians. This was a monumental shift. Vespasian was not from the old Roman aristocracy. He was a new man, from a humble equestrian family. His rise proved that the path to a purple toga was now open to those outside the traditional elite. The Flavian dynasty, consisting of Vespasian and his two sons, Titus and Domitia, would rule for 27 years. They restored stability, shored up the empire's finances, which Nero had wrecked, and embarked on massive building projects. The most famous of these, the Flavian Amphitheater, better known to us today as the Colosseum, which was ironically built on the site of the lake in Nero's extravagant golden house. It was a powerful symbol, the people's arena, built over the tyrant's private luxury. Nero's death, therefore, was a critical turning point. It ended the first Roman imperial dynasty and exposed the fundamental weakness in the system of succession. It unleashed a devastating civil war that revealed the true source of power in the empire, the military, and it paved the way for a new kind of emperor, one who rose through merit and military might rather than aristocratic lineage. The fallout from his final, desperate moments in that villa fundamentally altered the political landscape of the Roman Empire, setting it on a new course and forever changing the ancient world. The death of the artist emperor marked the birth of a new, more militaristic and pragmatic Roman age. What do you think? Was Nero a misunderstood artist or a monstrous tyrant? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into Roman history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. See you in the next video.